Hello, so I'm back. So I was taking a look and I changed some settings in the microphone. I hope I was seeing that it was like a little bit too saturated. Let me know how the audio comes out and then we can improve on those things. So let's talk about who I am. So basically, I'm Colombian and I come from the country where we grow the best coffee in the world. Or so we are told, since we are small kids. I'm come from Colombia, from a small town in Colombia called Pereira, which is in the coffee production area. So coffee is very deep in our culture and it's very beautiful landscapes and things like that. I studied computer science, which in Colombia it's called software engineering or like ingeniería de sistemas or systems engineering rather. But I think the most similar one will be computer science. And when I graduated, I created with my wife and then some other friends like a device that allow blind kids to see colors and shapes with their hands. This is a version of it, and we actually created a company with that. We worked on that company for 10 years. For a while, and then created another company for software development that was called Cap Solutions, and I was in charge of all the software development for all of this. Thanks to that, I managed to get a Fulbright scholarship and to travel here to the US to study my PhD in the University of Maryland, where I studied with the great Ben Schneiderman and Catherine Presant, who are two of the brightest figures in the information visualization world or the human-computer interaction world. They are super smart, and as you can see, they made me very happy. These are the guys next to me. I have no idea who is the guy photobombing in the back. I should AI remove that person so it doesn't look like a deer about to really run over a car. In any case, and probably I'm not sure if these things are going to be working in here, but like they are the creators, Ben and Catherine, of things like here is, for instance, one of the projects that Catherine created that it's called Lifelines, which help visualizing like the whole patient's history, like the whole years in this case, like this Linda Simpson, it's from 1992 to 1998. Then you can see all the different diagnoses and elements that they have done on her, like that she has had obesity, and then she was a smoker, but she stopped, and then she started getting knee pain, and because of that, she had to do knee surgery. She was prescribed Advil for that, but then she also started with diabetes, which prescribed her insulin, blah, 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 and then the result of exams and all of that in just one thing. This is what we do in visualization. Ben created other things, so here are some examples of the things that I created on my own. Like, for instance, this is part of a project called LiveFlow, where we can visualize and summarize like many paths, in this case, of incident response for traffic accidents. So for the first responders. So in this case, you can see that out of these almost 5,000 incidents, most of them started with this orange event, which is the incident notification. Then the next one, in the 3 minutes, they arrive to the scene, and then in 21 minutes or something, like the most of them clear, and then it returns to normal. But then in some cases, the data actually showed that it was clearing before arriving, which clearly is an error, and you can see that visualizing here. Like the height, it's how many of those were following that pattern. I also did visualizations. This is very old Java prototype, like from, oh my God, like 15 years ago maybe, like visualizing all the traffic of air traffic like before 9/11 and things like that. I created another one like visualizing the overall budget in the US, between comparing changes in the US budget, like in this case, for instance, this is very old budget, like between 71 and 72, and then seeing the biggest elements in the US federal budget, like the Department of Defense, Treasury, Social Security Administration, Department of Health, etc., etc. I also did that visualizing like eBay data. I don't know if you even know what eBay is anymore. It's like a, how you say, like a buying and selling website that was very famous in the 90s. It's still, I think it's still alive, and it allows you to do to bid for elements. So I visualized like millions of records in there and created like 9 different case studies for my PhD thesis, blah, blah, blah. 13 different case studies with 9 different agencies and elements from the White House to the Food and Drug Administration, blah, blah, blah. And then I graduated the PhD, and then came to work in Xerox PARC In case you don't know, if you have watched like Steve Jobs movies or things like that, this is the place where he was supposedly going to steal the idea of the computer mouse and the graphical user interface, because this is the place where those things were created or perfected in case of the mouse. It's also where the personal computer was born, like back in the 80s, 90s. I was there like in 2013 or something like that. It was a great experience, and I did a lot of visualization on social media, which was all in the boom back then. And also very importantly in this case, for instance, visualizing fraud, waste, and abuse in the California health system. These are different either doctors or pharmacies of patients, and then you can see like the bigger ones that are red are kind of the ones that are fishy because of fentanyl prescriptions and things like that we already know have been convicted. And we were interested in trying to find networks of doctors that were prescribing fentanyl, and we already know about that doctor. So what are the other doctors, the patients that have gone to the fishy doctor have gone to, and things like that. So in this case, I was finding communities in that and seeing these visualizations. Each dot is either a pharmacy, a doctor, or a patient, and then a connection is between them if they have been some relationship between them. And in this case, it's very interesting. Not so much this one, because this is kind of like a cluster of the bad people that everyone already knew. But for instance, this one, which is kind of like an under the radar network that already had like enough fishy people in there. And that maybe like they weren't looking at it anymore. And this is showing, I think in this case is like almost 50,000 different nodes, like 20,000 different doctors and patients and pharmacies with almost 50,000 links. I kept on doing a lot of work on that, and I probably am going to show you more of that. Then I switched to Yahoo Labs, which was one of the biggest research labs here in Silicon Valley, and I did a lot of work on photography. It's one of my passions. So I was visualizing, in this case, for instance, it's how many photos were tagged for the different seasons in the Flickr platform. So Flickr is it's kind of like the grandfather of all the photo sharing or photo social media applications. And it was the best place, and I think it might still be the best place for sharing professional photos. So the social media has changed a lot. In this case, what you're seeing, it's how people call, like at what week of the year where people call in their photos either winter or spring or summer in red or fall, and then again winter in here. And then you can see that there was like another one that was like autumn, and then how it changed over the years. I did a lot of work on that. This is an interesting prototype that I created that was ready to be deployed before I just left, that allow you to look at your own photos in Flickr and see how many engagements they were getting from users. So I have done a lot of different things on that. I can show you many examples of that. If you're interested, I can show you some demos of my more recent work in the synchronizations, or even share on Slack. These were also like what were the top photos in your repositories during the time, or visualizing. This is a project that I never get to publish, but it was very beautiful. With the Internet Archive, that they had a huge repository of images extracted from books that they had been digitizing. And then this was a platform for you to navigate through those images. So after completing this time, since I was a Fulbright, I was supposed to return to Colombia. So I spent like 4 years in there, and I work with many of these students. Actually, there's many of them that are like from Northeastern right now. And if you go to my website and johnguerra.co and just scroll down a little bit, you can see many of these students that did master thesis with me, and the projects that they created. So if you're interested in doing research with me, you can even find like some of the latest ones, like this one, which these I have to speak with Gian and Lincoln in Lana, because their link is not working, but that's the latest one that they did on prompt engineering and different techniques for doing that. Okay, so I closed the wrong one, so let's see if I can jump back. Okay, so that is a little bit about me. Then I returned to the Bay Area in 2020, exactly during the pandemic, to work in Northeastern in San Francisco 5 years ago. And right now I'm in Northeastern Auckland and super excited to be your professor. Okay, so the other one that I have to tell you, it's about Outsmart Your Brain. This is a book that I strongly recommend you to all read. I wish somebody had recommended this book to me when I came to study in the US. It is very valuable and it contains like a lot of information. Outsmart Your Brain, here it is. You can actually find it in the Northeastern Library, so I strongly recommend you to at least take a peek at it. As you can see here, I listened to it on Audible, and it was super valuable. It contains many things about from how to take notes, how to understand the concepts of the class, like in the structure of the class, how to know when to finish studying for a project. I cannot recommend it enough. It is not going to be mandatory for you to read it, but I strongly recommend you to do it. Okay, so keep that in mind. Okay, and then finally, let me tell you about some of the applications I have created and what are the architectures that they use. So, and actually, you know what? Let me split that into another video.